Hello, everyone, and welcome to a uh, second webinar within our series of webinars about Business Central and Power Platform. And today we are getting into a more deeper topic. It's about Power Platform via connectors. So I'm happy to see here so many partners from One Click Factory and QBS Group communities. And if you didn't participate at last time, so I quickly introduce myself. I'm Tautvydas Dagys, or in short, you can call me Tony, and I'm leading Power Platform and CRM team within One Click Factory. And One Click Factory, of course, is really known for deep expertise and products and services surrounded around Dynamics NAV family, Business Central family, as well as finance and operations. And our Power Platform and CRM practice is pretty new, but we already looking into a lot of opportunities and support requests from our partners, especially when we want to utilize Business Central or the whole Dynamics family with a Power Platform, because what Microsoft is doing, and they are giving us the platform which spans across all suite of business applications. Even though all that business application families really diverse in terms of technologies, but Power Platform is here to unite it. And today we'll just get back a little bit into the picture how Power Platform and Business Central works together. We'll check the theory around Power Platform connectors, and then we'll go and check the Business Central connectors, how to create custom connectors, and then how to use them with Canvas apps and Power Automate. And we'll end up this webinar with a questions and answers section. So, yep, be active. We are happy to receive your questions and reactions. And you can do that. You can raise the questions in a Q&A section, but of course you can share your opinions in the chat as well. And in the handouts section, there are a couple of documents describing our services and nice diagram uniting all that picture how Business Central and Power Platform is connected all together. As I mentioned, this is a series of webinars. So we started last week with a general overview. And if you have missed that, the recording is available. Our colleagues will share that link with you now. And now we are in the connector based topic. And then later this month, there will be topics about integration with the Dataverse and also with Power BI, which will be delivered by my colleague, Igor. So a short reminder, again, coming from the last session as well. So since we see that this topic is very interesting for our partners, so we want to offer to attendees of this of these workshops an opportunity to discuss with us about how we could help you, because I believe you came here to listen about all the information, what's possible to do, what's the main thing, things to avoid or things to think of. But also, if you have the real struggle, real issues with your projects, and or you just wanted to have some trainings or workshops, so yeah, we are happy to support you and yeah, we have this special offer now. You can fill in the form, and then we can meet together to discuss your problem and to build the possible list of actions which we might take together, or to complete and solve the issue you have between the Business Central and Power Platform integration. So, Power Platform and Business Central. So, the last time we split the picture of Power Platform into three parts. So it's connector based, or we can call it modern. Then there is Dataverse based and Power BI based. And today we are getting deeper into connector based side of Power Platform. Again, reminder, what kind of components do we have in this modern part? So, of course, in the center, it stands Power Automate, and especially the cloud flows, because Power Automate today have two sides, which are technically are totally different. So we have cloud flows and desktop flows. And cloud flows, same as Canvas apps, this special type of Power Apps, they are using shared framework of Power Platform connectors. Then we also have Power Virtual Agents, but their connectivity is very simple. Just from Power Virtual Agents, we can call cloud flows. And if we need, for example, some data from Business Central, we can connect through connector and pass the data back to a chatbot. And Canvas app has direct connectivity to Business Central through connector, and or it can call flows, and flow can go to Business Central. And then on the REST side, via connectors, we have the whole world open for us, the cloud services and also on-premises services. And desktop flows is different story. They don't use the same connectors. They have their own actions. But when it comes to Business Central, there are also a couple of interesting scenarios where desktop flows can help to implement. For example, reading the data from old kind of devices, some tracking devices, scanning inventory devices, which you can connect to some computer or server, and then there is no, let's say, API or anything. So we can connect to the desktop flow, and then imitating the user actions, we can read the screen, we can open required apps, and we can read the data and push it back to Business Central. And also, nice part of resources which are available in this site is AI Builder, which gives us some pre-built or the mode artificial intelligence models. And also we can build our own models, train them, and later use for applications. One of the most common scenarios is usually the form processing, where we have to recognize different type of forms, find the data and digitalize it, and push it to the databases or services. Also, a quick reminder about licensing. So again, we're speaking a lot about Power Platform here, but it's also very important to know that if you are giving your users Dynamics 365 Business Central licenses, the full ones, they automatically can use Power Apps as well and Power Automate flows. Of course, those supposed to run in the context of Business Central. They supposed to be as like addition to Business Central. I don't want to use the word extension because it's also a technical term for Business Central itself. But again, if it's just additional piece of the solution next to Business Central, then the same licenses apply, and you can utilize the Power Apps and Power Automate flows. Okay, let's move forward. So, a bit of theory about connectors. So, yeah, later I will show you live how those connectors look like, how we can use them. But in general, we should understand that connector, yeah, it's a kind of object which defines how we speak to other systems. And since it's a general framework, so we can use it in any place. It's kind of standardized way how we can talk to other systems. And the main two parts of the connector is triggers and actions. Triggers are used in Power Automate cloud flows because they can start the flow. If something happened in Business Central, for example, in CRM, in I don't know, SharePoint, anywhere else, in the email, I got new email, it could be a trigger to launch Power Automate Cloudflow. And then we have two main architectural designs for the triggers. It's usually the webhook or polling. Webhook means that external system calls a special endpoint on the Power Automate, which and gives the information that something changed, something happened outside. Or polling, where Power Automate checks every couple of minutes or seconds and checks if there are changes in external systems. And then we have actions. So normally we can realize the actions as CRUD operations, so create, read, update, delete, when we speak about data-centric systems. But we can have also the actions like create new file in SharePoint, download something. Like if we speak about Business Central, it could be like post a journal or invoice. And usually those actions are implemented via API calls, but also in the out-of-the-box connectors, it could be it could work directly with the database. So same actions are used by Power Automate, Cloud Flows, and Canvas apps. Of course, there are some differences, and we'll discuss that later in this webinar. Important part of all this connector world is that we have possibility to connect to on-premise data. And yeah, so on-premise, we can realize that it's real on-premise, like physically in my building, in my local area network, and not exposed to internet. But actually, this on-premise gateway could be used for Azure hosted scenarios as well, if we don't want to expose, like, let's say, APIs to the outer world. So we can block the APIs so that nobody would access them in general. So, and enable and deploy this on-premise data gateway. So giving and only one secured channel for Power Platform to talk to our local area network. So in general, what we do, we install the on-premise data gateway on one of our machines inside our network. And then, of course, we configure, we let the component know to which environment we want to connect. And then in the environments, in the management, we can see the list of those gateways available. And then we already connect with the, let's say, with the Windows credentials, like to the physical machine, and then we can access all the resources like databases and also APIs and etc. And this framework is shared on the broader page. So it's Power Apps, Power Automate, also Power BI using the same data gateway, and Azure Logic Apps, for example, because I usually say that Azure Logic Apps is like a bigger brother of Power Automate. So they also share the connectors. Okay, so what we have around Business Central connectors. So we have two of them available. One is Business Central, and it's supposed to work only with a SaaS version, so online version. And then we have Business Central on-premise. It's a bit more simplified version where we can connect to already through a data gateway to on-premise deployment of our Business Central. Couple of things to note that they're in a preview mode still, like for a long period of time, and it's hard to say when they're going out of the preview, because in general there are some kind of limitations of using them. So I would assume that Microsoft is working on the even improved version of the connectors before they will release it to general availability. Both connectors are based on the APIs, and they are falling into premium category. So premium category means that you need to have either full Power Platform license, or this Business Central full license. It's also works for this purpose. Now let's take a look what do we have here. So the first sample is the screenshots are from Business Central connector, which works for the online version. And yeah, so on the left we see triggers, on the right we see actions, and there are a lot of triggers available for online version, and most of them are related to different approval requests. And but also we have the so-called CRUD operations, like when record is changed, when record is created, when record is deleted, or record is modified. So we can react to different changes which happened in the Business Central database and do some actions based on that. And then in the actions, it's not the full list. I have filtered it based on V3. So V3 is just versioning in the context of the connector itself. It does not span to APIs or something. And here again we have pretty the same list of CRUD operations, like create, delete, update. We can get a record, but it's only a single record via this action. And we can get all record types which are available for us. And then we can also execute an action. Action is usually some kind of, for example, posting something. On-premise version, on the other hand, it does not have any triggers. And that's very pity, because we can't enable those scenarios on reaction to some change. On the action side, it's again a bit different approach, at least different naming. It also works on the table levels, and it can work with the different tables. But here we have as well get one item by ID, create item, update item, and etc. So this is the view from Power Automate perspective. But now, as I explained, that the same connector is used for Power Automate and and Canvas apps. So let's take a look how this connector can be used in the Canvas app. And here we have already a difference, and good and bad difference, because we gain some extra functionality, but we lose something else. Yeah. So when we try to add a data source of Business Central in a Canvas app. So first, we are being asked to select our environment instance and also the company. So we select the company, and then we are getting the list of all possible tables. And that actually is not complete list of Business Central, but it's only the list which is exposed through APIs, different families of APIs. So V2 here means that those APIs are exposed. There is a special set of V2 APIs. There used to be V1 of Business Central, now it's V2. But we also have some additional ones like Microsoft Automation. There are workflow related APIs, different endpoints. And then when we select individual tables, we get so-called data sources in the list of Canvas app data, data tab. And then for each table, we have individual data set. And here in the bottom, we see how we can work with that data and the options and the difference to what we saw in the Power Automate actions is that we are working with it as a data set. So we don't have access to those actions. And that's one of the difference. And for example, we don't have these bound actions where we can execute something. Also with this V2 set of APIs, we don't have possibility to filter directly in on a server. So we have to, let's say, create a new collection internal in Canvas app and copy all the data from this direct Business Central collection. And then we already can do different type of filtrations in memory for the whole data. Okay. And here I would like to mention a couple of limitations of these out of the box connectors, which are coming from Microsoft. And the limitations comes differently in a different context. So for example, Power Automate Cloud Flows, we lack possibility to get the list of records because there is no such action. We can get a single one by ID. It works well if we are reacting to a change. Then we're getting the record itself. We're getting some related IDs of other records, and then we can do some modifications for that. But if we want to show the list before, so then or do some operation on this, then we have a problem here. Also, based on this V2 API, there are issues receiving the picture and document content because it's being sent as the binary stream, and Power Platform expects to have JSON, formatted JSON, and etc. So, of course, there are workarounds with the different techniques, but yeah, we'll just speak around that. Also, we don't have possibility to limit the columns when we are requesting data. For example, if we have very large tables, we will get the whole all the attributes which are coming, which are available in the database for us, exposed for us. Then we have limited set of tables. There are no custom web services, and on-premise web connector does not have triggers. Now, when we look into Canvas apps, since we work with a data set, we don't have actions. Then Business Central connector is non-delegatable. This concept is specific to Canvas apps, and I'll talk about this a bit later as well. but the main concept is that in the Canvas app, we are doing the code with a new language, which is called PowerFX. And then we do this filtration for the data sets and etc. And then Canvas app tries to resolve some background things for us. And then it tries to translate our requests back to the server. And when we deal with the non-delegatable connectors, then there is no smart way how to deal with that. It just loads all the data and then does all the modifications inside the app, inside the memory. The same issue with the documents and pictures. And in the Canvas app, we have some issues with the error handling still. And we can't do server-side search. We still have to load all the data to the app and then do search inside. And we have limited set of tables, and we don't have custom web services, same as for Power Automate. Okay, so is it the end of the story? So it's limited connectors, and we can't do anything about that? No, actually, that's not a blocker. And we can use custom connectors to overcome those issues of out-of-the-box connectors. Let's say probably Power Platform, the best connector we have on Power Platform is for Dataverse. It has lots of actions, really well integrated to Canvas apps and etc. But still, even in that example, sometimes we have to create our custom connectors, let's say dealing with the large files, large attachments, or something like that, which kind of just gets out of standard scenario. So custom connectors is here to help us. And let's see how they work. So what is that custom connector? So in general, custom connector, it's just a definition of the way how we will communicate to a data source via APIs. So as the developers, we can create connectors only which are utilizing APIs. So let's say we have Business Center. Here we have exposed APIs, and then we define just by configuration. There is no development needed. We are creating custom connector and defining how we'll speak to those APIs. And when connector is created, then before we can use it, we always have to create a connection out of that. There is always confusion, connector connection. So connection holds information about the login, about the authentication, but not in general. But when you sign in to the API, either with the individual credentials, either with some system account, or just API key or something, then it creates a connection object and stores that those credentials in this object. So those are separated, and this is a secure way how Power Platform keeps the credentials of actual logins to all those data sources. So now looking into technologies, so creating custom connector. So the main requirement is that we should use REST API. In Business Central context, you're probably more familiar with the OData. So if you have OData enabled, then that's fine. Those APIs can be consumed in the Power Platform. SOAP APIs doesn't work for Power Platform, but the bigger brother of Power Automate, Logic Apps on Azure, there is possibility to plug the SOAP APIs if that's really needed, if you are still running very old version of Business Central. Now, authentication methods, the set, like usually it's a basic or OAuth 2, which is based on the individual user. It gets back the token from Active Directory. And then just the problem that these connections cannot be shared with others. Since with the basic, we can create like authentication on one system account, and then we can share it with all users of our app. And then there is no need for individual authentication, which is good and bad, both. More flexible, but less secure, of course. So we can create in our custom connector both actions and triggers. Of course, actions is pretty straightforward, but with the triggers, we already have to set up our own infrastructure, because we'll have to give those messages to Power Platform that, hey, something changed for me. And probably for Business Central, it would be okay, not harder to implement, but it's possible to implement. But anyway, you need to have the custom code, which will track the changes in the Business Central and then give the notifications to Power Automate to launch some flows. And nice addition is also that custom connectors support on-premise data gateway. So we are not limited only to the cloud, so we can connect to on-premises as well. And very new addition to custom connector framework, it's still in a preview, is that is the possibility to add our custom C# code. So currently it's very limited because we have to copy paste code inside the browser. It's limited in the size of the code. It's limited just a few seconds how long that code can be executed, and etc. But that's nice extension and allows us to add additional transformations for the data between the data source and our apps. So with the custom code, we can do some data transformations for that. I believe in the future it will be plugged in all ALM story and etc. Now, since custom connector is being built on the API, so let's check to Business Central APIs. So, okay, I might be wrong in some terminology areas because my background is CRM and Power Platform, but I try to consult with our colleagues from Business Central. So I hope that will be accurate. So in Business Central, we have two main sets of APIs or web services. So it's the web services which we can see directly in the Business Central after we enable, because for on-premise installations, we have to specifically enable that and configure. For online, it's always there. So in the web services list, we can find the list of all available web services and the two URLs, OData and SOAP. So for Power Platform, we need OData part. Now, nice part here is that we can create our custom ones without coding even. So we can create web services based on queries or pages. There's also possibility to do it on a code units, but then already extension development is involved here. Okay. Another set of web services, which Microsoft calls already APIs, is API v2, which is also based on OData kind of concept, on an OData framework, but we don't see them here in the list, and they are just defined in the documentation. And yeah, we can find how to use it. Looks pretty similar, just with the small differences within the URL formation, like we don't have OData v4 mentioned here. We have Business Central Dynamics v2, environment name like production. Then we have API v2. And then here's the sample, for example, how to get list of items. Okay, so v2, the environment name, production, and then we have items, and we add also the parameter of the company. There's also a possibility to add company in the URL, but it's also a bit different from web services, and it might be Microsoft changing something because it works differently from documentation. So in documentation, it says that it should be used here, but when you try to use, you get error messages that it's supposed to be used in this way. So, but it's pretty easily doable. So now, normally with the OData protocol, because it's wide protocol, it's not Microsoft owned and etc. It's used across the internet. Many APIs are implementing this OData framework, and then using HTTP actions, we can do the main CRUD operations like get, post, patch, and delete. Stands for getting single or list of records. Then we have post, which creates the record, and then we have patch, which updates the record. And also we can delete the records if our permissions allows that. But the sad part is that we don't have all the tables and all the fields exposed. Like compared to Dynamics CRM or Dataverse, we are automatically getting OData APIs for all the tables and every field within that table. Here, it's limited, the things which are exposed only. But as I mentioned, we can always go and create our custom, and what we usually start doing. So we create our custom web service based on API or on page or query, and then we can get another tables exposed as well for connectivity. Yeah, so both of those web services and APIs, V2, can be used. And Microsoft itself, for their own connector, they're using these APIs. And we can create custom connector for online as well, for on-premise, real on-premise, or cloud-hosted deployment. And those options also support gateway. Now, when it comes to authentication, so most common way to authenticate to Business Central APIs, web services, was this web service access key. But now it's being already deprecated for online deployments for SaaS, and it will be totally removed and closed with the release wave 1 of next year. So if you are building something new, so consider using OAuth. So just the problem will be that you won't be able to share. So then you have to build the whole development that it will go on individual user rights. So every user will log in themselves, so that will be easier. It will be necessary only one time. It's easier compared to finding and activating your web access key. But yeah, it will be more secure. Microsoft is trying to close all the holes, let's say, insecure parts, and basic authentication is really one of those in today's situation. Okay, and before jumping to a custom connector, to look into custom connector visually, let's do a quick poll. And I have a question. So have you already tried to use a connector for a Business Central? And if you did that, so maybe you can share which part of those you have used. And it's a multiple choice, so you can select a couple of those. And also you can select a gateway, which is much more advanced scenario. So that would be interesting to hear. Okay, putting my votes. Let's see. Okay. Mhm. Yeah, majority of you haven't used it yet, and those who have, the main scenario was standard Microsoft Business Central out of the box connector. Good. And also a couple of usages of gateway and on-premise as well. Good. Thanks. Thanks for your feedback. Okay. So now let's try to open our environment. Share my screen. Okay. Just a quick question to my colleagues if everything is visible. My browser. Yeah, probably it is. Okay, so now I'm here in the Maker portal of Power Apps, and here I can find the connectors inside. Yeah, first I will change the environment, because in Power Platform we have different environments. And now in the data part, I have custom connectors. And let me open custom connector, which I created recently, and it's based on V2 APIs. Let's take a look inside. So when you try it first, it might be confusing, but in the end, everything is doable. Postman, the tool which helps you to execute and call different APIs, should be your best friend here. And now we are defining just an URL. We're defining the base, the beginning of URL before all the part which will be changing. Then we're defining security. So here we don't enter usernames and password. We are just defining what will be the method of authentication. And if we're doing OAuth, then we have to enter many kind of application IDs and etc. from our Active Directory. Okay, and then we have definition, where we can add actions. We don't see triggers here because I'm modifying the connector from Power Apps side. But if I would open the same connector from Power Automate side, then I would see the triggers as well. Yeah, so here I have created a sample action, which is just the possibility to get filtered item list. Okay, so I'm giving the name, and then I have to define how our request will look like. And the easiest part is to do just train it through sample. I select from one of the HTTP actions or verbs. So let's say to get things is get, and then I have to add, let's say that was sample API. I have to add a sample API call. I can delete the beginning because, oops, it's defined already in the first page. Okay. Okay, I'm losing that when I'm moving the mouse out. Okay, it doesn't matter. So it could be longer, but it's easier to read just the beginning. And then I can define, so this was to get the full list, so items is enough. Then I have to define and say that, yeah, we still have to show that company part equals something. And then let's say I can use a special clauses from OData protocol, which is, for example, filter, where I can do filtration on the records. I can do a select clause, which allows me to just choose columns and don't load everything, just choose a couple of columns which are needed. And then I can do also expand clause, which brings together a related record. Usually it's a parent record for us, but it includes already details and we don't need to do an additional request. And then if we have headers or body would be available if we do post. If we do get, we don't have body. And then we automatically are getting generated parameters for our action, which are just directly, we will provide them to action as parameters, and then they will go to this API. In the same way, we define the response through sample. We just give the JSON sample so that Power Platform can extract all the data types, all the fields which are available, and later they can do validation. The code, which I mentioned, it could be uploaded C# here without source control and etc. But I hope that in the future it will be added. And here we can do test right away. Here you see the connection which I created before, even a couple of those, and then based on that. I can do okay, filtered list, filter company, default company, and then I can leave filter empty and then test it. And yeah, I'm getting the list of all items coming directly from Business Central data. But if I want, I can do filtrations. Let's say I can filter out all the inventories which are more than 0 and etc. Okay, let's get back to the slides. So that was a custom connector, and automatically we are getting the connections out of that as well. Good. Let's move forward. There's still lots of content and not so much time. Okay. So the first samples of the connectors was how to use them in Power Automate. So now question how to use them in Canvas apps. So in the Canvas apps, we have two types. So this is out of the box connector. I already showed that piece of the code. So here we are just bringing the data set into another collection, and then we can start doing all the filterings and other modifications to that collection. Now, with a custom connector, the difference is that we are not getting the data set. So we have to call the actions, the ones which we have created. Let's say BC Online V2 get filtered items list, and we providing those parameters, like company and filter parameter. And then we are picking the value and putting the value, which is the collection, the list of that, into our collection. Okay. So, very important thing to mention is the data row limit. When starting to develop the Canvas apps, usually people don't just realize that there are some limitations, and usually you start with the demo data, test data, and you never feel that until you go to production, because there is a row limit for those, let's say, data set type of connectors. Same would be for out-of-the-box Microsoft Business Central one. And by default, this limit is set to 500. but the maximum is 2000. But even 2000 is already risky because it will take time to load, and it has to load all the data into your memory. And here you have to be careful, and probably if you feel that there are possibilities you will reach that limit, or anyway it gets slow, then you should think of using custom connector, and then you can do filtrations as I showed there, and avoid that issue. And because then the limit is not applied, because you are getting just a JSON back. And you can even think of some paging scenarios and etc. if you really need to do to work with that large data sets. A short note about error handling. So again, it's coming from our experience. If you want to do all those custom connector calls within the Canvas app, at the moment there are pretty poor error handling. So it means that errors would be just shown to the user. And if you want to intercept, show nice message and etc., the features are coming, but they're still experimental. It doesn't work well on custom connectors. So the recommendation would be to go and use Power Automate flows, as which could be called from Canvas app. I see that we are running out of time, so maybe I'll jump quickly to the next topic, and because I showed the main concepts of how to connect, how different connectors are being connected to Canvas app. Now, Power Automate flows, we can use them as you saw, triggers, actions, and etc. There is some already out-of-the-box integration, which is available with the Business Central, and you can find usually those things on a requests on approvals, because Power Platform and Power Automate flows, they have really strong approval module coming from SharePoint, also improved from CRM and etc. So approvals is kind of product itself, approval management, multiple approvals, sequential approvals, substitutes, and etc. And it's even a direct integration where users can click on the create flow, and they will get a template, and then they are able to create the one for themselves. And I can quickly show it to you. Okay, let's go here. Yeah, let's open another window. So Power Apps and Flows looks kind of similar. They have similar things. Just few minor things are different. So that was the flow which was created out of that template. And let's take a look inside. So the trigger was when item approval is requested. It was based on item. So I'm connecting to production, Chronos, and etc. Then getting the record itself of workflow items. I'm getting by row ID. So this is another type of web services which are enabled specifically for approval scenarios. Then I start approval process. This is a special connector or action within the Power Automate. When I say that I choose the approval type, I define the title, I assign to somebody, now it's for myself. Then I provide the details as the text information, and then we wait for an answer. We can do also send it via email. We can push it to Teams and etc. So the big power of this mechanism is that it can be approved outside of Business Central without opening it, without having a license, and etc. And then I can check if, like when we receive response, which is object itself, it might come from different sources, from email, from Teams, from directly from the app, from Power Automate app. And then if it's approved, then I do update workflow action response approve back to Business Central. And I can, since I have many connectors, I can send email, I can create some tasks, and etc. And I can do conditions here if it's coming from specific person, from specific role, management levels. I can get this information from Office 365 and etc. And if it's not approved, then I'm changing status as well, and running conditional statement related to an email. Now, if I would jump to here in the Power Automate area in the website, I even have special category approvals. It also available for me via Power Automate mobile app application. So I can see all the approvals which are coming from me from different systems, Business Central, SharePoint for documents, and etc. And for me, it's very easy. I click on the approval, it's object itself. It opens up, it will show me all the contextual information. Lagging. Okay, yeah, and I can choose approve or reject or reassign. So I can build sequential and other different type of approvals. Okay, and that's really one of the mechanism which is the most built. Sorry, which is the most built into Business Central. Okay, so let's get back to the last slides, and we are already in the end of our webinar. And before checking your questions, I would like to ask as well whether you thought of some kind of maybe new scenarios which you would try to implement with the help of connectors, Canvas app, Power Automate flows, which you haven't thought about before. Now I'll check to comment section and also to Q&A section to see what is there. Okay, let's see into Q&A. Okay, lots of questions. When customer has a BC SaaS license, then there has also full access to custom connectors connecting with BC without need an additional license from Power Platform. Yep, that's true. If you have the not Teams license, but the full license of Business Central, yeah, you can spin off a Power Platform environment, and you can create apps and flows there, which are supposed to be connected. Okay, other question from Lucas. Can I define one on-prem data gateway for many environments in a Power Platform? Yep, so you have to install the gateway on the physical servers, and then you have to configure them so so that they would be available or visible to a specific tenants and Power Platform environments. But we can provide some more information on that with a follow-up, just to clarify it more clearly. You stated that it only works for a BC SaaS, but there is an on-premise connector also. Does it mean that it's available but does not work? No, on-premise connector works. Not sure in which context I told. I probably told that only triggers are working with a SaaS connector. On-premise don't have any triggers. So we can do only kind of get one item or update one item, and etc. Okay, maybe know how to use default API URL from multi-tenant environment with Power BI. Only workaround I'm aware is to use alternate tenant ID as the host name. I can't comment exactly about that list coming from Power BI. So my colleague will be doing Power BI session later this month, but all this we will try to answer this also in the follow-up after the session. Okay, a few more questions from Lucas. How can I do error exception handling in the Canvas app while dealing with the custom connectors? Bad request. Yeah, that's a good question. I already mentioned that. Yeah, so currently it's the way that it just throws an error to the user, and then it's up to user, which is not really user friendly. So the technique which we are using is to create a Power Automate flow, which you can launch from the button or from other action within the Canvas app. And you pass parameters, and then Power Automate flow can do the work to call the connectors and etc., and get the result back to the Canvas app. Of course, then you have to deal with the long-running transactions, maybe add some timeouts and etc. But like for a bad request, it will be probably fast. And then you can check the status of the previous action in the Power Automate flow. And if it failed, etc., you can do one branch. Like if there was an error, you can provide some user-friendly message back to Canvas app. Or if it was successful, you just provide the results. When you do Power Automate, can you return information to Business Central? Yes, you can do updates. You can do creates from Power Automate. And then you can return some results back to a Canvas app as well. Okay, and that was all about questions. So thanks a lot for the questions. We'll follow up with a couple of those, which I was not able to explain in a full context. But now, quick reminder about possibility for you to consult with us regarding all this integration between Business Central and Power Platform. And reminder about upcoming webinars later this month. So there are one which I'll be delivering about integration with the Dataverse, and then my colleague will deliver one with the integration to Power BI. And you should get the registration URLs in the chat very soon. And also, if you want, you can download handouts from the handouts section, which is next to a Q&A section as the separate tab. So just diagram about all this connectivity between Business Central and Power Platform, and also our offerings for trainings in Power Platform. Of course, our colleagues from Business Central has much more to offer for Business Central users, but here it's what's related to Power Platform. So thank you very much. It was really a pleasure to speak here in front of you, even virtually. So we'll be waiting for you on the next webinars. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.